Hello, good evening, and welcome to day number 362. My name is Mary, and today's story title is Paul's Last Years. Paul lived for 2 years in the house he rented in Rome. Every day, a soldier was brought from the camp, and Paul was chained to him all day. The next day, another soldier came. To each one, Paul spoke the gospel until, after a time, many of the soldiers in the camp were believers in Christ. When these soldiers were sent away, they often carried the gospel with them to other lands. So Paul thought a prisoner was still doing good and working for Christ. Then, too, some of Paul's friends were with him in Rome. Timothy, whom Paul loved to call his son in the gospel, and Luke, the doctor, were there, perhaps in the same house. Aristarchus of Thessalonica, who had been with him in the ship and the storm, was still with Paul. Mark, the young man who years before went with Paul and Barnabas on their first journey from Antioch, visited Paul in Rome. At one time, when Paul had been a prisoner nearly 2 years, a friend came to see him from Philippi in Macedonia. His name was Epaphroditus, and he brought Paul a loving message from that church and gifts to help Paul in his need. In return, Paul wrote the church at Philippi a letter, the Epistle to the Philippians, full of tender, gentle words. It was taken to the church by Epaphroditus and Timothy. In Rome, a man named Onesimus met Paul. He was a runaway slave who belonged to a friend of Paul named Philemon, who lived at Colossae. Paul led Onesimus to Christ. And then, although he would have liked to keep him with himself, he sent him back to Philemon, his master. But he asked Philemon not to treat him as a slave, but as a brother in Christ. This he wrote in a letter called the Epistle to Philemon. Onesimus also delivered a letter to the church at Colossae, the Epistle to the Colossians. And about the same time, Paul wrote one of the greatest and most wonderful of all his letters, the Epistle to the Ephesians, which he sent to the church in Ephesus. It is thought, though it is not certain, that Paul was set free from prison after 2 years. He lived a free man, preaching in many lands for a few years. Then it is believed that he was again made a prisoner and taken to Rome, where Emperor Nero had him put to death. Among his last words were, "I have fought a good fight. I have run my race. I have kept the faith. And now there is waiting for me the crown which the Lord himself shall give me." And that was the word of the Lord. Now we come to our discussion questions, and we have 4 of them. The first one says, how long did Paul stay in Rome? How long did Paul stay in Rome? Second question, what did Paul say to the soldiers? What did Paul say to the soldiers? And the second part of number 2, how did that spread the gospel? How did that spread the gospel? Number 3, who was with Paul in Rome? Who was with Paul in Rome? Number 4 and last, what did Paul do while he was in Rome? What did Paul do while he was in Rome? And with that last question, we are finished with day number 362. So may God bless us all until the next one, which will be very soon. So stay tuned for the following story. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye now.